I've been talking about Drew Hayes pretty much nonstop this year, and today I'm going to be talking about why you should read Fred the Vampire Accountant. First, it's the perfect, easy fantasy. Have you ever had those moments in life where you're just tired and stressed and overwhelmed and you just can't handle life? So you turn to your favorite hobby, reading. You pick up a book. But then as you're trying to read, you're realizing you're just not getting it. Nothing's sticking with you. You're too tired, too stressed, too overwhelmed, and you can't handle any more information. So even what you do to relax isn't relaxing anymore. It's just too much. Well, that right there is the perfect time to pick up Fred the Vampire Accountant. Fred lived a really simple life. He was a pretty boring guy. He was very much an introvert with social anxiety who didn't have many friends. So he would go to work as an accountant, which he loved, and then he would go home, drink a glass of wine, go to bed. And that's what he did day in and day out, until the night when he was attacked and became a vampire. But his life didn't change like he thought it would. Now, he was expecting Hollywood vampire and that type of lifestyle, and it didn't happen. He basically just continued to go about his own business. He obviously couldn't go into the office, so he opens up his own accounting firm and he works nights and needed to find an arrangement to where he could buy blood because he didn't want to actually attack people and suck their blood. He wanted to get from willing donors. But besides those, what he sees as minor inconveniences, his life pretty much continued, except for the fact that he wasn't technically alive. He was undead at this point. But besides that, minor details, just kept going about his life. Until the night when he goes to a high school reunion, and that kicks off the chain of events where he meets a whole lot more of the Paranormal Society. Now, the Paranormal Society, it is a society, and they still need accountants. They need lawyers. They need people that do paperwork. But if you didn't like doing paperwork during life, you probably don't enjoy it during death either. So there's not a lot of people that do accounting work in the paranormal activity. So Fred wants to fill that need. And while doing that, he meets all these other people, or undead people and beings, and he kind of becomes friends and allies with them, and he's not being a typical vampire. In his mind, he's being a very weak vampire. However, he keeps building all of these powerful friendships, and people on the outside start getting concerned about this vampire that's collecting allies from all different types of species. He's gaining a power base, and that has people concerned. So even though Fred says his life is utterly uninteresting, he continues to build a base that threatens the way things are going, and that builds a tension throughout the series. Now, while that tension is slowly building, the stories fly by. Each of the books aren't very long. I think this is the shortest at about 170 pages, and the longest is about 400 pages. I think they average about 300. So they're very short stories. And then within the stories, it's written like a memoir. So it's not one continual story. Each book has 5 to 10 different stories in there. So it's always a really small chunk. And then that small chunk or small story, it's still broken into chapters. So however much time you have to read, you'll always find a really easy stopping point. Which also means this can be a really fast read because there's always another stopping point just a few pages later, which really encourage you to just read a couple more pages, read a couple more pages, read a couple more pages. And before you know it, you're going to be through all 8 books in about 3 weeks like I was. So the simplicity of this series makes it really great to be used as a palate cleanser between other epic fantasies. But the pacing of the book and the way it's written makes it an extremely bingeable series too, if you want to go that route. So besides the easy and fast reading prose and the low stakes but building tension and the easy world to get to know, it also has quite a bit of humor in it, a little bit of romance, just to throw that in there, and then sprinkle in a little bit of horror and gore, and then add in a wonderful message about acceptance and judging people for who they are and what they do, and not for any biases you may have. Makes Fred the Vampire Accountant just a fantastic read. Honestly, the best way I can describe this series is just fun and refreshing. It's the perfect series to get you past that reading slump or to get you through whatever's going on in your life that has you distracted, that even something you typically enjoy is no longer enjoyable. Now, what this series isn't is it's not going to be an epic fantasy or a dark fantasy or a gritty fantasy. It's not Dresden, it's not Stormlight, it's not Wheel of Time, it's not Lord of the Rings. It's nothing like any of those. It's just a refreshing take on fantasy. It's actually going to be more like Legends and Lattes than anything else I've read. And considering that, I wouldn't be surprised if this series doesn't become your favorite. It's not my favorite series. It's just a good, fun, and enjoyable series to read. I'm not going to be going online and looking up more information about Fred and trying to figure out what happens next and digging into the lore of the world or anything like that. But I enjoyed it while I was reading it, and I could easily see myself doing rereads anytime I hit a reading slump or, again, just have something in my life that is just too much to handle. I will always be able to turn back to Fred for help getting through whatever's going on in my life. So I hope you give the series a chance, and if you do, let me know what you think. And if you've already read it, let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I've said. And until next time, bye.